3 knocks at midnight on Christmas Eve. A fist like a sledgehammer. The sound of a baseball bat tapping against leather gloves. I texted one word, now. 3 neighbors simultaneously opened their doors, stepped through the snow, and burst into my apartment. Before the cops arrived, the man I called Stepfather was face down, hands zip-tied under the blinking Christmas lights. But to understand why that night happened, you need to know how he turned a home into a prison and why I had to turn an entire neighborhood into my own rapid response team. My name is Avery Holt, 28 years old, EMT trainee at Lakeside Memorial in Maple Hollow, Ohio. Right now, I'm sitting under fluorescent lights that make my bruised face look like spoiled fruit. The antiseptic smell burns my nostrils. My left shoulder throbs separated, the doctor said. My split lip tastes like copper pennies, but the worst pain isn't physical. It's remembering my mother Joanne standing frozen in the doorway while Dale Riker's hands wrapped around my throat. She just stood there, clutching her robe, eyes empty as abandoned houses. The emergency room buzzes with Christmas Eve casualties, drunk drivers, kitchen accidents, family fights, normal holiday disasters. Except mine was planned, orchestrated. The nurses keep glancing at me between their rounds. They recognize their own. I've brought patients here during my training shifts. Now I'm the one with the wristband. My phone vibrates against the plastic chair. The group chat named Porchlight Watch shows my message from 3 hours ago. Now. Delivered to 3 recipients. Read by 3 recipients. 3 baseball bats answered. Detective Morrison sits across from me. Notebook out. Coffee going cold. She's worked Maple Hollow PD for 15 years, seen enough domestic calls to fill a cemetery. Your neighbors showed up within 90 seconds, she says, tapping her pen. All 3 of them, with bats. At 11:47 p.m., on Christmas Eve, I shift the ice pack on my shoulder. Lucky timing. No such thing as luck when 3 separate households respond that fast. She leans forward. They were waiting, watching. Through the exam room window, I can see them in the waiting area. Mr. O'Keefe still in his Marine Corps sweater, silver hair perfectly combed despite the chaos. Tasha Morales pacing in her softball team jacket, fists clenched like she's ready for round 2. Jamal Price on his phone, probably calling in sick to his overnight delivery route. They came for me. No questions. No hesitation. Want to know the truth? I tell Morrison. I've been training them for tonight for the past month. Her eyebrows rise. Training them. Like a fire drill. Except for when the fire is a 200-pound construction contractor with a temper and my mother's maiden name on a secret credit card. Morrison's pen stops moving. You knew this would happen. I knew something would happen. Christmas makes him worse. All those happy families on TV. All that pressure to be perfect. Last year, he broke my wrist. Year before that, 3 ribs. This year, I touch my throat where the bruises are already blooming purple and yellow like toxic flowers. This year, I decided to break the pattern. By organizing a vigilante neighborhood watch, by creating a safety net with witnesses and video evidence. I pull up my phone, show her the app connected to my doorbell camera. Cloud storage. Triggered by elevated voices or impact sounds. Caught everything from the first knock to the zip ties. Morrison watches the footage. Dale's face contorting with rage. His boot splintering my door. My mother standing behind him like a ghost. The assault. My neighbors bursting in like a SWAT team in pajamas. O'Keefe's commanding voice. Step away from her. Now. Tasha's bat catching the light as she holds it ready. Jamal already on the phone with dispatch. They never touched him, I continue. Only contained him until you arrived. Textbook citizen's arrest. And your mother. The question hangs between us like Dale's fist before it connected with my jaw. She made her choice. Has been making it every day for 6 years. Morrison closes her notebook. We've got him on assault, battery, breaking and entering for starters. The financial fraud with the credit cards that's federal. He's not getting out anytime soon. Define soon. With his record, the evidence. Looking at 5 to 8? Minimum. 5 to 8 years. It sounds like freedom. It sounds like breathing without checking over my shoulder. It sounds like keeping my bedroom door closed without consequences. There's more, I tell her, pulling out a flash drive from my pocket. Bank statements, photos from the past 3 years, medical records I've been collecting, all backed up in 3 different locations. Morrison takes the drive, weighs it in her palm like she's holding years of pain compressed into plastic and metal. You've been planning this for a while. Since the day he moved in and told me to know my place. She stands, signals to the nurse that we're done. Your neighbors are asking about you. Heroes tend to worry about the people they save. Through the window, I watch my rapid response team. 3 strangers who became family because family became strangers. They see me looking, and O'Keefe gives a small salute. Tasha holds up her phone, already documenting everything for court. Jamal raises his coffee cup in a toast. I trained them for the worst night of my life, I tell Morrison as she opens the door. Turns out I was training them for the first night of the rest of it. Winter in Maple Hollow used to taste like hot chocolate and sound like my father's laugh echoing across frozen Miller's Pond. Mark Holt taught me to ice skate when I was 6, his carpenter's hands steady on my shoulders as I wobbled on rental blades. Eyes up, baby girl, he'd say. Look where you're going, not where you've been. Those Saturday mornings were sacred. Dad would wake me at 7 sharp, already dressed in his red flannel jacket that smelled like sawdust and Old Spice. Mom would pack thermoses of cocoa with extra marshmallows, complaining about the cold while secretly loving how it painted our cheeks pink. She was the high school librarian then, always quoting poetry about winter being the season of recovery and preparation. Our house on Sycamore Street was nothing special, a 2-story colonial with drafty windows and pipes that sang in January. But Dad made it magic. He built shelves for Mom's books, a workshop in the garage where he taught me the difference between oak and pine, a tire swing in the backyard that flew over snowdrifts like a pendulum marking perfect time. Then came the accident at the factory. A mechanical failure, they said, a machine that should have been replaced years ago. Dad was training a new guy, pushed him out of the way when the hydraulic press malfunctioned, saved a stranger's life with his own. The local paper called him a hero. I just called him gone. Mom unraveled like a sweater with a pulled thread. First slowly, then all at once. The poetry books gathered dust. The high school hired a substitute, then a replacement. The house that had been warm became a waiting room for bills, for groceries, for something to change. Enter Dale Riker. He showed up 8 months after the funeral, when the gutters were overflowing and the porch steps had started to rot. A referral from someone at Mom's grief support group. Heard you need some work done, he said, tool belt slung low like a gunslinger, smile practiced and symmetrical. Happy to help a neighbor in need. He fixed the gutters for free. Wouldn't take payment for the porch either. Consider it a favor, he said, winking at Mom like they shared a secret. She blushed, the first color I'd seen in her face since Dad's wake. Dale became a regular fixture. Tuesday dinners, weekend repairs. He brought lumber that filled the garage with the ghost of Dad's sawdust smell, but sharper, more chemical. He'd tell stories about construction sites, making Mom laugh in a way that sounded like she was trying to remember how. He was patient, attentive, never pushing a slow-motion invasion disguised as rescue. I was 22, working part-time at a grocery store, taking community college classes when I could afford them. Watching this stranger rearrange our grief into something that looked like gratitude. He brought flowers. He fixed the kitchen sink. He hung Christmas lights that December, standing exactly where Dad used to stand, using the same ladder Dad had built. Avery doesn't trust me yet, he told Mom one night, loud enough for me to hear from my room. That's okay. She's protective of you. Shows she was raised right. The proposal came on Valentine's Day, 2 years after they met. Public, at Lorenzo's Italian restaurant, with half the town watching. Mom said yes before he finished asking. The ring was huge, too huge for someone who claimed to be just getting by as an independent contractor. The engagement party was at our house. Dale had invited his crew, guys who looked at our family photos like they were appraising furniture. He made a speech about stepping up and being the man this family needs. Then he found me in the kitchen, refilling the ice bucket. "Beautiful necklace I got you," he said, pulling a silver chain from his pocket, a small pendant, engraved with the word family. I didn't want it, but Mom was watching from the doorway, hope fragile as spun glass in her eyes. So I let him clasp it around my neck, his breath hot on my ear as he whispered, "From now on, you know your place." The words were soft enough that Mom couldn't hear, sharp enough to cut. When I turned, his smile was still camera ready, but his eyes were flat as frozen ponds, nothing underneath but dark water and things that had stopped moving. "Thank you," I managed, the pendant already feeling like a collar. Mom beamed. The guests applauded. Dale's hand settled on my shoulder, possessive as a paperweight, holding me in place while everyone took photos of our new family. That night, after everyone left, I stood in Dad's workshop. Dale's workshop now. The tools were reorganized, labeled with a maker's mark that wasn't my father's. The tire swing rope had been cut down, coiled neatly on a shelf like a museum piece. I understood then what Dale was not a replacement but an erasure. He didn't want to join our family. He wanted to delete it and write his own story in the blank space. Looking back, that pendant was the first chain, light enough that I could pretend it wasn't there, tight enough that I never forgot who held the key. The rules started small, like hairline cracks in a windshield. "Door open when you're home. Avery, we're family now." Dale's tone was casual, but his eyes tracked compliance like a scorecard. My bedroom door, which had been my sanctuary since childhood, became a border I couldn't close. "Privacy is for people with secrets," he'd say, walking past at random times, checking, always checking. If I pushed back, Mom would appear with that pleading look, the one that said, "Please don't make this harder than it already is." Then came the financial controls. I was working 25 hours a week at Save Mart, making barely above minimum wage while finishing my EMT certification. Every Thursday, Dale would be waiting when I got home. "Payday, right. Hand extended like a tax collector. Need to see the stub for the household budget. I can contribute without. No secrets in this family. Avery, your mother agrees. Don't you?" "Joanne," Mom would nod from the kitchen, stirring something on the stove with mechanical precision. "Dale's very good with money. He's helping us get back on track." Back on track. As if we'd been derailed rather than deliberately switched to his route. The notebook appeared next a black ledger where I had to record every expense. Coffee with a classmate written down. Gas for my car documented. Tampons, Dale would review that entry with special attention, making sure I understood that even my body's schedule was part of his household management. Accountability, he called it. That's how families succeed. At neighborhood barbecues, Dale was a different creature, flipping burgers in his Kiss the Cook apron, discussing the Browns' playoff chances with Mr. O'Keefe, helping Tasha fix her lawnmower, the devoted family man who'd saved the widow Holt and her difficult daughter. "Avery's lucky to have you," Mrs. Patterson from 2 houses down told him at the 4th of July block party. "Lord knows she needs a firm hand. Been wild since her daddy died." Wild. Because I'd dated a boy from community college, because I'd come home at 10:30 instead of 10, because I'd bought a used textbook without asking permission. Dale's hand found my shoulder, squeezing just hard enough to hurt. "We're working on it, aren't we? Sweetheart." The EMT classes were my oxygen. 3 nights a week, I could breathe, learn about trauma responses, practice CPR, study anatomy, build a future that existed outside Dale's blueprint. But when I brought home the certification program paperwork, needing one signature for financial aid, he laughed. "Emergency medical technician. You can barely handle regular life. Look at this room bed's not even made properly." It's a real career. The hospital offers job placement after real careers are for real adults. You're playing pretend Avery. Time to face facts. He tore the paperwork in half, then quarters, then smaller pieces, each rip precise and deliberate. Mom stood in the hallway, visible through my mandatorily open door, hands twisted together like she was wringing out invisible laundry. I can pay for it myself, I said. With what money? The paycheck you give me for rent. The savings account I closed to pay for your mother's medications. Mom's medications. Antidepressants that appeared after Dale moved in. Anxiety pills that multiplied with each new rule. She was being medicated into compliance while I was being financially strangled into submission. I started hiding cash, $5 here, $10 there, stuffed inside a tampon box, the one place Dale wouldn't check. Every secret dollar felt like a small revolution. The breaking point came when I discovered the credit card. I'd been looking for my birth certificate in Mom's filing cabinet, needing it for the EMT program I was secretly reapplying to. Instead, I found a visa statement. Joanne Riker, her name with his last name, though they'd only been married a year. The balance $8,000, charges for tools, truck parts, a flat-screen TV I'd never seen, rounds at bars across town. Mom, I cornered her in the laundry room, the only place Dale rarely went. This credit card, he needed it for business expenses. Her voice was monotone, rehearsed. Equipment for bigger jobs. Mom, this is fraud if you didn't... I signed it. She kept folding towels, each crease sharp as a blade. I signed everything, but her hands shook, and when she reached for the next towel, I saw the bruise on her wrist, finger-shaped, purple-green like the pendant Dale bought her for their anniversary. Mom, leave it alone, Avery. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a second I saw her the woman who used to quote Dickinson, who danced with Dad in the kitchen, who existed before fear became her primary language. Please, just leave it alone. That night, Dale stood in my doorway at 11:15, backlit by the hall light. Your mother says you were asking about finances. Just worried about her. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him the first time he'd broken his own rule. Worry about yourself, about being grateful, about knowing your place in this family. The threat hung between us like a noose waiting for a neck. After he left, door pointedly open again, I texted my friend from EMT class, if I ever text you the word now, call 911 to my address immediately. She texted back, you okay? I looked at my door that couldn't close, my paycheck that wasn't mine, my mother who'd become a ghost haunting her own life. Getting there, I replied. Because every escape plan starts with admitting you need one. Building a rescue team started with borrowed sugar and ended with synchronized watches. Mr. O'Keefe was first. I knocked on his door on a Tuesday evening in November, holding an empty measuring cup like a prop. The 70-year-old Marine opened up wearing his usual uniform-pressed khakis, navy anchor tattoo visible on his forearm, eyes that missed nothing. Don't bake. Do you? He saw through me immediately. I need help, I said, abandoning pretense. Dale. One word, but his tone carried understanding. He'd been watching, the way Marines watch cataloging patterns, noting irregularities. Can we talk? Not here. We met at the park the next morning. 6 a.m. sharp. Frost on the benches. Breath visible in the cold. I told him everything, the control, the finances, the escalation I could feel building like pressure in a pipe. In the Corps, we had a saying, he said. No Marine fights alone. I'm not a Marine. No, but you're my neighbor. That's close enough. Tasha Morales was next. The high school softball coach lived 3 houses down, all muscle and determination packed into 5 feet 4 inches. I approached her while she was working on her truck in the driveway. Country music spilling from the radio. Need a hand? I asked. Need a new alternator? She emerged from under the hood, grease on her cheeks. But you didn't come here about my truck. Tasha had seen Dale grab my arm at the Labor Day picnic, his fingers leaving marks. She'd started parking her morning runs to pass our house at 7:15, when he left for work. Checking my route, she'd say, but we both knew she was checking on me. I'm building something, I told her. A safety net? Count me in. No hesitation. My girls call me Coach Protective for a reason. Jamal Price was the wild card. 26. Worked the overnight shift for Pacific Delivery. Kept to himself. But he'd helped me change a flat tire once at 2A, both of us insomniacs in a sleeping neighborhood. He'd mentioned his sister, how her ex had stalked her, how he'd wished someone had helped sooner. I caught him loading his van at 10 p. Remember what you said about your sister. His hands stilled on the packages. Yeah. I need that kind of someone. When? Soon. He handed me a package to hold while he reorganized his route. I'm usually awake anyway. We met as a group only once, in O'Keefe's garage on a Sunday when Dale was watching football with his crew. I'd told him I was getting groceries. Instead, I was distributing burner phones $20 each from different stores. Paid cash. Operation Porchlight Watch, O'Keefe announced. Military precision in every word. Simple rules of engagement. I laid out the protocol. If you get a text that says now, you call 911 immediately. Then you come to the house. Bring baseball bats legal to carry. Clear self-defense if needed. Why bats? Tasha asked. Visual deterrent. Plus, O'Keefe smiled grimly. Everyone knows the sound of aluminum on leather. It's universal for back off. We practiced the response twice. Synchronized our phones. Tasha suggested adding cameras. She helped me install a video doorbell that uploaded to the cloud, motion activated with sound triggers. Set it to record at elevated decibel levels, she said, adjusting the sensitivity. Yelling, impacts, breaking glass, it'll catch everything. Jamal contributed his own innovation reflective tape on the bats, so the cops can see we're the good guys in the dark. I gave them each a spare key to our front door. Hide it. If the door's locked when you get the signal, we're coming in regardless. O'Keefe finished. The anonymous warning came 2 weeks later. A photo of my bedroom window slid under my windshield wiper while I was at class. Soon, written in Sharpie across the bottom. The paper reeked of Marlboro Red's Dale's brand. I showed it to my team at our second and final meeting. He's escalating. O'Keefe stated the obvious. Christmas is a trigger season for abusers. Pressure, alcohol, expectations. My phone stays on 24/7 starting December 1st, Jamal promised. Tasha had been researching. I've got recordings of our practices, time-stamped. If anyone questions the response time, we have proof this was planned as a safety measure, not vigilantism. We ran one more drill, 45 seconds from text to arrival. O'Keefe moved like muscle memory still worked at 70. Tasha brought her coaching whistle. Noise draws witnesses. Jamal had programmed the local police station into his speed dial. What if he comes after us? Tasha asked. Retaliation. Then we stand together, O'Keefe answered before I could. That's what neighbors do. I started documenting everything obsessively. Photos of bruises, screenshots of joint bank accounts I shouldn't have access to but did because Mom used my birthday for every password. USB drives hidden in 3 locations, the tampon box. Inside an old DVD case, buried in a Ziploc in O'Keefe's garden shed. December 23rd. I made final preparations, charged all phones, tested the doorbell camera, sent a group text, tomorrow's Christmas Eve. Dale's been drinking since noon. Stay ready. O'Keefe replied, Roger that. Tasha, bat by the bed. Jamal, delivering until midnight, then I'm home and watching. That night, I couldn't sleep, kept checking my phone, watching the camera feed of our front door. At 11:43 p.m., Dale's truck pulled up. He sat in the cab for 4 minutes, engine running, cigarette glowing orange in the dark. Then he flicked the cigarette onto our lawn and headed for the door. I typed 3 letters now and held my thumb over send, waiting. The first knock rattled the frame. The second splintered wood. The third never came because my thumb pressed down, and 3 phones lit up in 3 houses, and the cavalry I'd built from borrowed sugar and shared fear was already moving. December crawled toward Christmas like a predator stalking prey. Dale's drinking started earlier each day, beer with breakfast, whiskey by noon. The house reeked of Marlboros and barely contained violence. "Family meeting," he announced on December 20th, pulling Mom into the living room. I was ordered to sit on the couch, hands visible, phone on the coffee table. "Your mother's sister called. Wants to visit for Christmas." "That's wonderful," Mom started. Denied. Dale cut her off. "We don't need outside influence. Tell her you're sick." Mom's fingers twisted in her lap. But Marie always. The slap was quick, casual, like swatting a fly. Mom's hand flew to her cheek. I started to rise, but Dale's finger pointed at me like a loaded gun. "Sit! Down!" I sat, hating myself for it. "Call her," he commanded Mom. Speakerphone. Mom dialed with shaking fingers. When Aunt Marie answered, bright and cheerful, Mom delivered the lie in a dead voice. "I've got the flu. Maybe New Year's instead." After Marie hung up, concerned and confused, Dale smiled. "See, easy. Family takes care of family." That night, I added photos of Mom's swollen cheek to my evidence folder. The bruise was already purple-green, perfectly matching the pendant he'd given her. December 21st. I filed for a temporary restraining order at the courthouse. The clerk, a tired woman with kind eyes, looked at my documentation. "Is your mother willing to testify?" "No." "Then it's harder. Judge Martinez is out until after Christmas. Judge Coleman might hear it. But," she shrugged, "holiday emergency orders are usually for immediate danger." "Define immediate." She handed back my forms. "Weapon involved, hospital admission, active threat with witnesses." I took the papers. "So I need to wait until he almost kills one of us." "I didn't say that." She leaned forward, lowered her voice. "But evidence helps. Video evidence especially. And witnesses who aren't family carry more weight." Message received. December 22nd. I made final preparations. The USB drive with financial fraud evidence went into a sealed envelope addressed to Detective Morrison at Maple Hollow PD, hidden in my locker at work. If something happened to me, my coworker Jenny would mail it. I texted the Porchlight Watch group. "Dale's getting worse. Mom's aunt banned from visiting. Christmas Eve will be bad." O'Keefe responded, "Weapons check complete." Tasha, "Cameras charged, recording everything." Jamal, scanner app shows police response time to our street averages 4 minutes. We can be there in 1. December 23rd started with Dale discovering I'd hidden $30 in my jewelry box. Not even stolen tips from helping elderly customers load groceries. Money I'd earned outside his system. "Theft," he declared, pocketing the cash. "From the household budget. Your mother's very disappointed." Mom stood behind him, empty as a drained pool. She hadn't spoken directly to me in 3 days. "I need gas money for work." "Then you should have asked properly." He stepped closer, breath sour with morning beer. "On your knees, maybe. Show some respect." "Dale, please," Mom whispered. He whirled on her. "Did I ask for input?" She shrank back. I stayed standing. "Kneel," he repeated. "No." The word hung between us like a lit fuse. His face reddened, veins bulging at his temples. But the doorbell rang Amazon delivery. He had to play normal for the driver. "Tonight," he hissed as he passed me. "We settle accounts." I spent December 23rd's afternoon at work, hands shaking as I stocked shelves. Jenny noticed, pulled me aside. "You okay? Remember that envelope in my locker?" "Yeah. If I don't come in tomorrow, mail it." She grabbed my hands. "Avery, what's—" "Just promise." "I promise. But you're scaring me." I squeezed her hands back. "Good. Fear keeps us sharp." That evening, Dale started drinking at 4 p.m. I counted empties from my room, 6 beers, half a fifth of Jim Beam. Mom locked herself in their bathroom at 8, running water to mask her crying. At 9:17, I heard him on the phone with his crew, slurring promises about tomorrow's poker game. Yeah, after I deal with some household business. Household business. That's what I'd become. I checked my supplies one last time. Phone charged. Doorbell camera active. Evidence backed up to 3 cloud services. At 9:45, I sent a final update to Porchlight Watch. He's drunk. Mom's hiding. He just told someone he has household business to deal with tonight. If you hear anything, see anything, now means now. O'Keefe. Eyes on your house from my window. Tasha. Bat in hand, door cracked. Jamal. Heading home early. Boss understands. ETA 15 minutes. At 10:58, Dale turned off the TV. I heard his footsteps, uneven but purposeful, heading upstairs. He stopped at my door, closed in defiance of his rules. Avery. Voice low. Dangerous. Open up. No. Your mother wants to talk to you. No, she doesn't. Silence. Then a chuckle. Dark and knowing. Last chance. For what? To be smart. Open the door. Apologize properly. And maybe Christmas doesn't have to be so painful. I moved to my window, confirmed O'Keefe's porch light was on our signal he was watching. Tasha's garage door was cracked open. Jamal's van had just turned onto our street. I'm done apologizing for existing, I said. Another laugh. Sharper. Merry fucking Christmas, then. His footsteps retreated. I heard him go downstairs, out the front door, truck door opening. I watched from my window as he sat in the cab, lit another cigarette. The orange glow pulsed like a heartbeat. 11:43. He flicked the cigarette onto our lawn. 11:44. He walked back toward the house, something in his hand catching the streetlight. Not a weapon keys. But his stride was all predator. I typed NOW. My thumb hovered as his first knock shook my door. Not knocking, pounding. The sound of authority demanding surrender. The door exploded inward. Wood splintered. The deadbolt held for exactly 1 second before Dale's boot connected again, ripping the frame apart like cardboard. He filled the doorway, silhouetted by the hall light, reeking of bourbon and rage. Behind him, Mom stood in her nightgown, arms wrapped around herself, eyes vacant as abandoned windows. You disrespectful little... His hand caught my hair before I could dodge, yanking me forward. My training kicked in protect the airway, maintain consciousness. But Dale was 200 pounds of construction worker muscle fueled by alcohol and years of unchallenged dominance. He dragged me into the hallway. My shoulder hit the wall. Family photos crashing down. Glass scattered across hardwood. Dad's smile shattered under Dale's work boots. Dale, please, Mom's voice, tiny as a child's. Shut up, Joanne. This is education. His fist connected with my ribs. Pain exploded through my chest, but I kept my EMT training centered assess, respond, survive. I drove my elbow back, catching his stomach. He grunted, grip loosening enough for me to twist away, but the hallway was narrow. Nowhere to run. His hand closed around my throat, slamming me against the wall. The pendant he'd given me pressed into my neck like mockery. Black spots danced in my vision. My phone was in my pocket. Could I reach it? You want to be independent. His face inches from mine. Spit flying. Try being independent when you can't breathe. My fingers found the phone. Muscle memory typed 3 letters by feel. Send. The notification sound was tiny, insignificant, but it meant everything. Dale's grip tightened. My feet left the floor. Mom stood frozen, watching her daughter hang like a portrait waiting to be straightened. The Christmas lights Dale had strung outside blinked through the window. Red, green, white. Red, green. White marking time I was running out of. Then footsteps. Running. Multiple sets. Dale heard them too. His head turned toward the stairs, grip loosening just enough for me to gasp air. The front door I'd given them keys, but the door was unlocked anyway, burst open. Police, step away from her now! But it wasn't police. It was O'Keefe's command voice, 70 years old but carrying the weight of Paris Island training, boots on stairs. Tasha appeared first, aluminum bat catching the light, whistle already shrieking, Jamal right behind, phone at his ear, 911 operator's voice audible. "Get your hands off her," O'Keefe ordered, mounting the stairs with surprising agility. "That's not a request. Son." Dale dropped me. I collapsed, gasping, shoulder screaming where it had separated. He turned toward the stairs, fists clenched. "This is family business. We are family." Tasha cut him off, bat raised. "And you just made it our business." Jamal spoke clearly into his phone. 1229 Sycamore Street. Domestic assault in progress. Perpetrator still violent. 3 witnesses on scene. Send units now. Dale lunged toward them, drunk, furious, but still dangerous. O'Keefe sidestepped with practiced ease, using Dale's momentum to send him stumbling. Tasha's bat never made contact. She just held it ready, a barrier between Dale and escape routes. "Don't touch him unless he attacks," O'Keefe commanded. "Defensive positions only." Dale spun, looking for Mom, maybe for support or a hostage. But she'd pressed herself against the far wall, finally seeing him without the filter of fear. Christmas lights through the window painted his face in alternating colors. Monster, man, monster, man. "Joanne, tell them, no." The word fell from her lips like a stone she'd been carrying too long. "I won't." Sirens, distant but approaching. Dale's eyes went wild, calculating. The stairs were blocked. The hallway led only to bedrooms. He was trapped by the cage he'd built. "You planned this," he snarled at me. I stood slowly, holding my shoulder, tasting blood where my lip had split against the wall. "I learned from you. Control the environment. Control the outcome." "Weapons down," O'Keefe ordered as sirens grew louder. "Hands visible. Let the cops see we're the good guys." Tasha lowered her bat but kept it ready. Jamal set his phone to speaker so the dispatcher could hear everything. They formed a human barrier at the top of the stairs, my neighbors, my army, my salvation. Dale made one last stupid decision. He rushed them. O'Keefe's Marine training responded before thought. A simple deflection, using Dale's weight against him. Dale went down hard, face first into broken glass from the family photos. He tried to rise, but Jamal had zip ties. "I carry packages. These are tools of the trade." And suddenly, Dale's hands were secured behind his back. "That's assault!" Dale screamed. "That's citizen's arrest," O'Keefe corrected calmly. "For domestic violence, assault and battery, and attempted strangulation. All witnessed, all recorded." I pointed to the smoke detector in the hallway. "Camera, motion activated. Uploads to cloud storage." Dale's face went white under the blood from the glass cuts. Blue and red lights flooded through windows. Boots on porch steps. Official voices calling out. "Up here," Jamal called. "Scene is secure. Suspect is restrained." 2 officers appeared, hands on weapons but not drawn. They took in the scene Dale face down and zip-tied, me holding my shoulder with visible throat bruises. 3 neighbors standing protective guard. Mom pressed against the wall in shock. "We got a call about a domestic disturbance," the lead officer said. "Multiple 911 calls." Jamal confirmed. "I started mine at 11:47, kept the line open for full audio. We witnessed assault and strangulation," Tasha added. "Responded to a call for help." O'Keefe handed over his phone. "Video from my security camera shows him entering aggressively. Her doorbell camera will have the rest." The officers looked at Dale, then at me. "Ma'am, do you need medical attention?" "Yes," I said clearly. "Separated shoulder, possible fractured ribs, strangulation injuries. I'm an EMT trainee. I need proper documentation of all injuries." As they hauled Dale to his feet, he looked at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said, holding up my phone showing the cloud storage app. "It is." The legal machinery moved faster than Dale expected. While he sat in county lockup on Christmas Eve, I built a case that would bury him in his own paper trail. Detective Morrison met me at the hospital after x-rays confirmed 2 fractured ribs and a grade 2 shoulder separation. She had a tablet, a recorder, and 0 patience for abusers. "Walk me through the evidence," she said. I handed over 3 USB drives. "Financial fraud first. 8 credit cards opened in Mom's name without her knowledge. I have the application's his handwriting, his phone number as contact." She plugged in the first drive, scrolling through PDFs. Total debt. $47,000. Mom's credit is destroyed, but here's the interesting part. I pulled up a spreadsheet. He used the cards for business expenses, then billed clients for the same materials. Double dipping. That's wire fraud if he used electronic payments. He did. Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, all documented. The second drive contained 3 years of photos, every bruise time-stamped, medical records from urgent care visits where I'd paid cash to avoid questions, audio recordings of his threats, captured by my phone hidden in my pocket. "This is from October." I played one. Dale's voice, crystal clear. "Try calling the cops. See what happens when they leave." Morrison's jaw tightened. The third drive. Tonight's footage, doorbell camera, hallway camera I installed last week, and Mr. O'Keefe's security system. 3 angles of the assault. We watched it together. The strangulation was textbook attempted murder, both hands. Feet leaving the floor. Loss of consciousness imminent when the neighbors arrived. The neighbors' response was unusually fast, Morrison noted. We practiced, like a fire drill. Premeditated self-defense. Premeditated survival. She closed the tablet. "The prosecutor will file multiple charges by morning, but there's a problem." My stomach dropped. "What problem?" "Your mother. She's refusing to cooperate." Of course she was. At 3 a.m., on Christmas morning, I found Mom in the hospital chapel. She looked smaller somehow, like fear had been the only thing giving her shape, and now she was deflating. "He's going to get out," she whispered. "Not this time. You don't understand. I signed things. The credit cards, I signed some of them. Under duress. How do I prove that?" I sat beside her, shoulder throbbing despite the pain medications. "You don't have to. I already did." I showed her the video from Thanksgiving, when Dale had gripped her wrist until she signed a Black Friday shopping application. Her whimper was audible. The bruises were visible the next day in date-stamped photos. "You documented everything," she said. "I learned from him. Control the narrative. Control the outcome." She started crying then. Tears that seemed to have been waiting years to fall. I didn't comfort her. Some guilt needs to be felt to be processed. By dawn, the prosecutor had reviewed everything. Maria Gonzalez was known for taking domestic violence cases personally. Her sister had been killed by an ex-boyfriend. "I'm filing 8 felony counts," she announced in the courthouse conference room. Aggravated assault, strangulation, false imprisonment, identity theft, wire fraud, credit card fraud, witness intimidation, and criminal threat. "Bail?" I asked. "I'm requesting remand. He's a flight risk and a danger to witnesses." The arraignment was scheduled for December 26th. But I wasn't done. I called Dale's business licensure board from the hospital bed, reported the fraud with documentation, called his insurance company about fraudulent claims, contacted every client in his phone records which I'd photographed months ago, warning them to check their invoices. "You're destroying him," Mom said, not quite disapproving but not approving either. "I'm returning the favor." The best part came from Tasha. She'd researched Dale's history, found 2 ex-girlfriends through Facebook. Both had eerily similar stories. Both had police reports that went nowhere. Both agreed to provide statements. "Pattern of behavior," Morrison explained. "Prosecutors love patterns." On December 26th, Dale stood before Judge Coleman in an orange jumpsuit, his court-appointed attorney looking overwhelmed by the prosecution's evidence binders. Gonzalez played the strangulation video on the courtroom screen. Dale watched himself choking me, Mom visible in the background doing nothing. Several people in the gallery gasped. "Your Honor," Gonzalez said. The defendant poses an extreme danger to the victim and witnesses. He has a documented history of violence, financial resources obtained through fraud, and every reason to flee or retaliate. Sir, Dale's attorney tried, "My client has community ties, a business under investigation for fraud." Gonzalez interrupted. "License suspended as of yesterday." Judge Coleman didn't deliberate long. "Bail is denied. The defendant will remain in custody pending trial." Dale's face went from red to white to red again. As they led him out, he turned to me. "You lying." "Careful," O'Keefe said from the gallery, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're still watching." After court, I filed the civil suit: personal injury, intentional infliction of emotional distress, conversion of property. My attorney, working pro bono through a domestic violence nonprofit, estimated damages at $200,000 minimum. "He doesn't have that," Mom protested. "He has a Ford F-150 construction equipment and a retirement account he didn't think I knew about," I replied. "It's a start." The investigator from the contractors board called that afternoon. "Based on your documentation, we're opening 37 separate investigations into fraudulent billing. His bond is revoked. He'll never work construction in Ohio again." By sunset on December 26th, Dale had lost his freedom, his business, his reputation, and his future. I sat in my childhood bedroom door, firmly closed, holding the evidence that had made it possible. The phone rang. "Gonzalez. Thought you should know he's trying to make bail through a bondsman." But the judge said, "His lawyer's filing an emergency appeal. Claims the video was illegally obtained. The neighbors were vigilantes. You entrapped him." My throat still bore purple fingerprints from his hands. "When's the hearing?" "Tomorrow morning. 9 Be there." The emergency bail hearing lasted exactly 17 minutes before imploding in Dale's face. His lawyer, sweating through a cheap suit, tried to paint me as a master manipulator. The defendant was lured into a trap. The alleged victim organized vigilantes, installed secret cameras, orchestrated. Judge Coleman cut him off. "Counselor, are you arguing that your client was forced to strangle Ms. Holt?" "No, Your Honor, but..." "Then I've heard enough." She turned to Dale. "Mr. Riker, you're charged with 8 felonies. The video evidence shows you breaking down a door and choking a woman until her feet left the ground. The financial fraud alone carries 20 years. Bail remains denied." Dale exploded. "She set me up. That bitch planned." The bailiff moved toward him, but Coleman raised a hand. "Please, Mr. Riker, continue threatening the victim in open court. The stenographer is getting every word." His lawyer grabbed Dale's arm, whispered urgently. Dale shut up, but his eyes promised violence that would never get the chance to materialize. Outside the courthouse, Gonzalez pulled me aside. "He just gave us witness intimidation in real time. That's 9 felonies now." Mom stood by the car, looking lost. The house felt different without Dale's shadow-filling doorways. She'd started seeing a therapist, started understanding how slowly boiling water can cook a frog. "I should have protected you," she said on the drive home. "You were drowning too." "That's not an excuse." "No," I agreed. "But it's an explanation." January brought more revelations. The investigation into Dale's business uncovered 12 more victims, elderly clients he'd overcharged by thousands. The IRS got involved when they discovered unreported income. The civil suit grew to include mail fraud and elder abuse. Dale's public defender tried for a plea deal. Gonzalez called me, laughing. He wants to plead to simple assault, time served, anger management classes. Counter offer: 15 years minimum, full restitution, lifetime restraining order. He won't take it. Then we go to trial. With 9 victims testifying, 3 video angles, and a paper trail that could circle the courthouse, he's looking at 30 to life. February brought the news that made everything worth it. Dale's assets were frozen pending civil proceedings. The F-150 was auctioned $18,000 into the restitution fund. His tools, another $12,000. The retirement account he'd hidden $60,000 was seized entirely. But the real victory came from O'Keefe, Tasha, and Jamal. They testified at the grand jury, their words carrying the weight of neutral witnesses. The grand jury indicted on all charges plus 2 new ones, burglary and conspiracy to commit financial fraud. March 10th. Trial date set. Dale fired his third attorney for incompetence translation for telling him he couldn't win. The trial lasted 4 days. I testified for 3 hours, walking the jury through 3 years of escalating control and violence. The prosecutor played the doorbell footage on loop. Dale's hands around my throat, my feet dangling, Mom frozen in the background. O'Keefe testified with military precision. Tasha brought her coaching whistle, demonstrated how she'd used it to disorient Dale. Jamal played his 911 call. Every word time-stamped and damning. Dale's defense was essentially that I'd provoked him by existing incorrectly. The jury deliberated for 43 minutes. Guilty. All counts. At sentencing, Dale got his chance to speak. He blamed me, Mom, alcohol, stress, his childhood, the economy, everyone but himself. Judge Coleman listened patiently, then sentenced him to 25 years minimum, possibility of parole after 15 with good behavior. Mr. Riker, she said, you turned a home into a prison. It seems fitting that an actual prison becomes your home. As they led him away, Dale looked back one last time, not at me, at Mom. You'll be nothing without me. Mom stood up, voice clear for the first time in years. I already was nothing with you. The civil trial was anticlimactic. Default judgment. $300,000 in damages. Every penny Dale would ever earn would go to restitution. I used my share to finish EMT certification, then paramedic school. Saved lives legally instead of just my own. Mom sold the house, bought a condo near Aunt Marie, started teaching again. The poetry returned slowly, like color seeping back into faded photographs. O'Keefe, Tasha, and Jamal became family, real family, chosen family. Sunday dinners, birthday parties, the kind of normal Dale had tried to steal. 5 years later, I got a notification. Dale was up for his first parole hearing. The victim advocate asked if I wanted to attend, to speak. I declined. I was working a Christmas Eve shift, bringing presents to kids in the pediatric ward. My partner, Jenny, the one who'd been ready to mail that envelope, helped me distribute stuffed animals and coloring books. You ever think about that night? She asked. Which night? Christmas Eve? When your neighbors saved you? I thought about it. The sound of bats against leather gloves. 3 doors opening simultaneously. O'Keefe's commanding voice cutting through chaos. Tasha's whistle piercing the night. Jamal's calm recitation to dispatch. The Christmas lights blinking as Dale's hands became handcuffs. Every day, I said, but not the way you'd think. How then? I think about how one text, 3 letters changed everything, how strangers became soldiers because I asked, how a neighborhood became a net because we wove it together. The courthouse was stringing Christmas lights as we drove past, red, green, white, blinking in patterns that used to mark my dying breaths but now just marked time passing safely. Dale's parole was denied. Would be denied again in 5 years, and again after that, if I had anything to say about it. But that's not what mattered anymore. What mattered was the door to my apartment that locked when I wanted it locked, the paychecks I cashed in my own name, the mother who'd learned to speak again. The neighbors who'd shown me that family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about who shows up when you text now. The Christmas lights blinked outside the hospital. Not a countdown anymore. Just decoration. Just light pushing back against December darkness. The way neighbors with baseball bats had pushed back against one man's reign of terror. Somewhere in a cell, Dale was spending another Christmas alone. And somewhere in Maple Hollow, Ohio, 3 neighbors were keeping watch, not just for me anymore, but for anyone who might need to know that sometimes. Salvation comes in the form of a text message and the sound of footsteps running through snow. The dispatcher's voice crackled over my radio. Unit 7. We have a domestic disturbance reported. Jenny looked at me. I grabbed the radio. Unit 7 responding. ETA 3 minutes. Someone else's now moment. Someone else's chance to be saved. We turned on the sirens and flew toward another darkness that needed breaking, another cage that needed opening, another person who needed to know that help was just 3 letters away. The Christmas lights blurred past the ambulance windows, red, green, white, painting the night in the colors of endings and beginnings and the thin, bright line between trapped and free. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and perspectives matter, and I'd be honored to hear them.